Hello. Today we are joined by Kevin Benacci. Kevin has a very extensive and impressive track record. He is currently the vice president at Targeted Victory. He is leading the cybersecurity practice, and he was previously the chief external affairs officer at the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at the Department of Homeland Security. Hope you enjoy. So, what is information security to you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Mitch. I think InfoSec to me is, the structure, processes, networks that underpin the companies, the infrastructure, and the entities in our life that let us live our life. And so InfoSec is something, there's obviously the IT and the OT side, but proper and good InfoSec is something that really people don't think about unless you're in the industry. But without proper InfoSec and good cyber hygiene, good cyber protocols, you really can put your company at risk. And when your company's at risk, obviously that can affect the ability for kids to go to school, the ability for healthcare systems to operate, for education systems to operate, and so on and so forth.
Perfect. Yeah. And then from that, what advice could you offer to my classmates in order to ensure security of the web apps they're creating?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think once you go to the consumer side, and once you actually put web apps out there, I think what's most helpful for folks to think about is one, they want to make sure they're staying up to date with patching. Arguably, the biggest problem that companies and the developers and that entities run into is they aren't creating patches fast enough, and then people on the back end, the end users aren't patching. So I think that's an important piece. The second piece I'd say is for folks that have these apps on their phones, depending on what it is, you got to update. And so when there's backups when you can have backups, you should have them. But when you get that update from your app, you got to do it. And then lastly, for your students that have a ton of apps on their phones, they got to have good passwords. They should use a password manager, and they should be changing the password, every 60, 90 days, and make sure they're not using the same thing. I mean, I really, what we say often is that the basics are hard. And so it's important that everybody gets the basics down. And that means not using password 123 or Gilmore 123.
Yeah. It's a little intricate.
A little intricate. Yes, correct.
And do you have any elaborate stories of exploits or pen testing you have seen or been a part of?
Sure. So in my former role, I was the chief external affairs officer at CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So I would say one of the most elaborate and sophisticated exploits that's maybe happened in history was the SolarWinds attack that affected federal agencies, thousands of companies in the private sector. And so as the head of external affairs at CISA, I was responsible for leading the federal government's communications on that. The size, scope, scale, and sophistication of that attack was unlike, I think, really anything the world's ever seen. It was something that the Russians planned for a long time, executed well, and had the ability to really potentially cripple companies all across the United States and all throughout the federal government. Ultimately, the SVR, the Russians who did that, really did it more as an espionage play, but
Rather than sabotage?
Rather than sabotage, yeah. Which I think is pretty interesting. They were in these networks for a long time, and they, I think, had the ability to do quite a bit of potential damage, and they did not. And then, something that I have not been a part of personally, but is happening over the last 7 days, which I'm sure you're aware of, Mitch, and which your viewers will be aware of, is this Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack.
Yeah.
And I think what's really fascinating is companies and leaders, I think all across the globe, but all throughout Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, up and down the country should be really concerned about it, because while their company might not have been affected, it should be an eye opener that
Yeah.
something that affects everybody needing to go get gas, right? Arguably was taken down because of a cyber attack. And I think company leaders, everybody at Gilmore who is in a leadership position should be getting their teams together and understanding what their cybersecurity posture is today, what their incident response plans are. If they don't have one, they should get one. And if they do have one, they should, ask themselves when the last time they tested it was, and exercised it. And then they should kind of ask themselves what their crisis management plan is, so that they have a playbook for when something like this happens. Because hopefully Gilmore doesn't go offline before your last week of school, but it could negatively affect folks.
Yeah, perfect. And so that attack is so big that both the Colonial Oil Rig, Solar Winds are really big entities. So with my classmates, their little web apps, say they blow up, and what's the next step of security?
Well, what do you mean?
I meant to add this to there, but I didn't. My friend teammates or my classmates are making web apps, and when they say one of them catch traction and popularity where there'd be a lot more traffic and a lot more vulnerability, do you have any suggestion on securing it?
So you mean once the app's out in the public and they have attackers that, all of a sudden it gets famous and then, right? Okay. That's what you're asking. So I think the first thing I would say is not know the answer from a technical development standpoint, but I think if and when you guys are building it, we like to say security by design, right? Or secure by design. So I think baking in security protocols on the front end is absolutely critical. And the President Biden just released an executive order. Today's Friday. He released it on Wednesday that essentially mandates stronger levels of security in future software that's being built as we speak. And so I think one of the things that you'll see is as the market moves to adapt to requirements from the federal government for these stronger mandates, I think there'll be there'll be downstream effects, so that when you're building these apps in the future and a few months from now, once these rules gets promulgated, you'll have stronger requirements that you're going to have to meet that'll, I think, raise the security baseline across the board.
Perfect. Well put. And then you ever feel like you're targeted because you're what industry you're in, like out you're in the field of cybersecurity, obviously you're ever out and about?
Sure. Have you heard of the term OPSEC before?
No.
So OPSEC is operational security. At the highest level, it's a military term, but it applies to really anybody. And there's a few things that you and your classmates should be thinking about. So OPSEC means that you don't leave your computer open and a document that has all of your name and passwords on it, right?
Yeah.
OPSEC means that when you write down your login information, you don't just leave it out in the middle of your car in case somebody wants to walk by your car. You don't leave your car open. You don't need your door unlocked. So operational security means that you should take cybersecurity seriously in your personal life, in your school life, in your work life. And so OPSEC is something that I'm constantly cognizant of. I make sure I'm using a password manager, make sure I'm not repeating passwords, make sure I'm logging in securely. And so, as a senior government official, we go through a series of trainings to make sure that essentially your head's on a swivel, so that when I am targeted, I have a number of blockers in place to make sure that, folks can't hack my stuff, if you will.
Manipulate you as easy. Yeah.
Correct.
And then do you kind of answer this, you live your life in a different realm other than like the average person. So like if you're out in public, do you not connect to Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi, or do you only do and you're like, oh, whatever, and shouldn't be a problem? Or how do you go about that?
Sure. So whenever possible, I don't connect to public Wi-Fi. Obviously that's sometimes easier said than done. If you got to get on the internet at the airport or something, you got to connect. And if you have data costs money. So if you don't have an unlimited data plan, you might not be fortunate enough and you might have to connect. But if you do have to connect through public Wi-Fi, there's a few things that you can do. And at the minimum, don't save your password, right? don't, auto input your credit card information.
Yeah.
There's a number of steps you can make to make sure that you're not leaving yourself out open in the public. You can use a VPN, in your daily life, but no, when in doubt, no, I don't connect to public Wi-Fi. And you should shop through trusted retailers. One of the things that we did at CISA was try to raise the cybersecurity awareness baseline for the nation. And one of that means is that you don't go to just fungifts.com and just buy something online, right?
Yeah.
You buy it from a trusted retailer like Amazon. You go to Best Buy, right?
Yeah.
And so there's certain levels of security that you can kind of give yourself a guarantee for. And, you should try to use safe methods. If you're able to use a credit card, there's normally stronger protections and better fraud protections with a credit card than there are with a debit card. So
dispute options, et cetera.
Correct. So I think there's a simple things like that when you're in your daily life, you're just smart about, right? So, and that takes some time, but I think that's important for everybody, no matter whether they're cybersecurity is something they think about all the time or something that is a foreign language to them. You can still try to be safe online.
Perfect. That's great information. Is there anything else you would like to add before we conclude?
No, I'd only one, go Lancers. And two, no, I think it's important for everybody to continuously work to change their passwords, make sure they're not reusing passwords, update your apps. If you have an iPhone and you get that, you get that ding that says that there's a new alert, go ahead and update that. Those are the basics. The basics are hard, but they're the simplest way to make sure that you don't get hacked, your data is not stolen, and you're not on the wrong end of a bad day.
Perfect. Well, on behalf of myself and my teacher, I want to thank you and the viewers for stepping in for this, and I hope I'll be able to teach somebody something from it.
Thank you. Thanks for the time, and congratulations on graduating.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, great. Thanks, Mitch.
Bye-bye.
Bye.